like to call a special session of Board of Supervisor order. And I make a motion that we go into session.
Second.
So we move to second, we go into session, all those in favor?
Aye.
Staff is requesting approval of the agenda with no added items.
So. Second.
This move to second, that we accept the agenda. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
We have citizens' comments next, Madam Chairman, but there appears to be no one here that wishes to speak this evening, so you can move on with other matters.
Okay, we are here tonight for the purpose of choosing an evaluation. And there are 3 choices to choose from. I'll call the one that is titled, annual evaluation form, the 1 page and there's both sides. I will title that one number 1. I will title the one that says Greensville County number 2. And then the multiple page document, I will title number 3. So,
Which one of these is the second?
one. I just need a motion, 1, 2, or 3.
Which is, just one.
1. 1.
I'll make a motion that we use the first one.
Second.
It's moved to second that we use evaluation form 1. All those in favor?
Aye.
There be no other business, can I move for adjournment?
Do we adjourn or do we have to call a meeting? We'll call it back to board.
You will at 6,
Okay, I move,
or you can recess till 6, either way.
move a recess to 6.
Second.
It's been moved to second that we recess until 6 o'clock, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Make the next one this year. Then, you got your other next one, right? It's gotta be this short.
The meeting gotta be short.
I see you.
to order.
Somebody call the board of supervisors to order.
Second.
That we come to order, all those in favor?
Aye. I don't feel
Now, I don't think we need to do a roll call. What they
No,
are,
so it's like-
they're not saying what they said. I'd like to introduce tonight, Melissa Scott, Kelly Davidson with the Barkley Group. They're going to be assisting the county with the development of the new comprehensive plan. Tonight, their basic mission is to introduce everybody to the comprehensive plan and the whole process of updating the comprehensive plan. So this time, I'll be glad to turn it over to Melissa and Kelly.
Hi, I'm Melissa. This is Kelly over here. And we're happy to be here tonight to speak to you a little bit about the comprehensive plan. And we really are impressed with your facility here. This is really, really great, and all the precautions that you all are taking. This is a lot higher level than anything we've seen lately. I would have to say that. Just a minute here. So, tonight we're here to talk to you, like Lynn said, about the comprehensive plan update. I think your last update was in 2016. When was that? Do you remember, Lynn? 16?
Not the exact year. We've done it every 5 years, just 9 updates, but it's not been overhauled in probably 12, 13 years.
So we spent some time with Lynn today. He told us a lot about the new developments in the county and the infrastructure and everything. And I think that's really going to mean a lot for your new comp plan and for you all as far as development goes. You've got some really, really good stuff going on here. I think it'll change a lot from the last plan, infrastructure and the different things going on. So, what's the project purpose of the comprehensive plan? The project purpose. The comprehensive plan is basically a community guided vision for the physical development of your county. So it can help you determine what your vision and goals are for the future of your county, basically for the physical development, and most importantly, it documents those visions and goals. So it's in a document somewhere that everyone can refer to when you're doing any kind of development or you're writing grants or things like that. So it's a nice reference. It's a showcase of your locality's assets and areas for improvement. So it's a chance for us to all talk about what's the good things that are going on in county here and highlight those in this document and make sure you're utilizing all those good things, that you all know about them. And it's a time to identify your weaknesses. And then together, we'll help you determine some ways to improve those. And it becomes a practical roadmap to achieve the goals that you all identify for your county. And like I said, by putting this into a formal document, this establishes clear direction for the locality that everyone can see. And it's required by state code. So the purpose of the comprehensive plan is it's a guiding document as opposed to ordinances. The ordinances are regulatory law. So for instance, the zoning ordinance, it regulates the use of land and structures, height, size, area, location, ensures light and air, convenience and safety, facilitates public services and amenities. These are all the things that Lynn does every day. It protects from destruction, encroachment, and dangers of adverse impact. And then your subdivision ordinance regulates the division of land, the number and size of the parcels, and it ensures that development will be completed, has adequate streets, things like that, and protects from unsound investment. But the comprehensive plan doesn't do any of those things as far as regulatory. It only guides So it sets your vision and goals and then guides those documents to be compliant with the plan, the comprehensive plan, the overall goals that you set for your community. So who's involved in this process? You are, as well as the whole community. We want to get everyone involved as much as possible. Advocacy groups, public officials, planning commission, any kind of regional groups, developers and builders, realtors, people like that will come and talk with the stakeholders, and the board of supervisors. A little overview of what's involved in this process is that we'll look at people, community facilities, local government, resources, housing, economy, transportation, natural resources, land use, and infrastructure. And when I say people, I mean the socioeconomics of what's going on in the county, like population growth and all of the changes that have happened in your community from the Census Bureau and any kind of local data sources. We'll, for each of these things, we then look at the existing conditions, what's going on now, the future goals that you all will work with us to help set, and the objectives. And we'll look at where this is happening with your future land use map. We'll map all kinds of different the infrastructure and several things we'll go over a little bit later. And then together, we'll look at how these things could be improved, expanded, or preserved, and figure out strategies to implement the goals that you come up with. So to talk a little bit more about the exact project, the scope of the project, and how we will accomplish this. We will review your current plans and ordinances, and talk with staff and you all. Like I said, we had some great meetings today with Lynn and learned a lot about the county. We'll do public input workshops and surveys for the general public. We'll look at the land use and transportation. Then we'll draft the plan and come up with implementation measures. And then we'll have the public review and refine that plan. And then we'll go to public hearing and adoption. We'll look at that a little bit closer here in just a minute. So the project timeline, how long is this going to take? Due to the pandemic, unfortunately, the start date has been delayed for this. So it's been set back, I think, approximately 6 months or so, maybe a little bit more. But we hope to finish this. Usually these are done in a year and a half to 2 years, but we really hope to get this back to you and ready to adopt by December of 2021. You have a detailed schedule in your agenda that will we can go over a little bit more closely. So the community engagement of this is very important. Like I said, all of the people need to be involved, be engaged, give us input. But this process may be a little bit altered these days, so we're still refining that process to figure out what's safe. You all have these great facilities, and I think it'll be a lot easier here than it will be in a lot of places, but things just aren't the same these days. We'll meet with stakeholders, so we'll come down and get, like I said, the realtors, developers, people like that, industry leaders, sit down with them and find out what they want for the future as well, and we'll incorporate that into our process. We'll be holding several workshops with you all, with the planning commission, your supervisors, and make sure that you're on board with everything before we move forward with each step. We'll be conducting an online survey to the general public. So we're establishing that right now. And after we learn from you what your issues are, we'll be able to develop those questions a little bit better. We'll be holding input workshops and with the public and with you, like I said. And then when the plan is finalized and reviewed by the planning commission or supervisors, we will have an open house for the public to do the final review before the adoption. So what are the deliverables of this project? Basically, we look at all of these different issues: the land use, transportation, natural resources, demographics, which is the people from the other slide, your housing, culture and history, your economy, and your public facilities. And we put all these things together in different chapters. So that's how we will be delivering those to you, as chapters that you will review, help us finalize those and get the right goals and objectives and strategies for your goals for each of those. And then for each of those sections, for each of those topics, we'll look at what's going on now. Like I said before, you take your visions and goals and objectives and map them out and help you come up with implementation strategies to implement and use this plan when we're done with it. So level of community engagement is what will really determine the success of this plan. That's what really makes it your plan. We have data that we can look at, but you all really know this community. And we want our work to reflect your vision for yourself. So we need you to stay engaged, provide input throughout this process. And even though the process, like I said, may be a little bit difficult, different than it's been in the past. So the workshops, stakeholder meetings, again, the online survey, more workshops with you, and then the open house is the process. So I want to talk a little bit about your current plan and what's in that, because we really need to establish whether the things that are in that plan right now are things that you want to stick with. I mean, are those things that you want to continue with, those goals and strategies, or do you want to change direction? Are things in this county changed enough that you think, those goals, we've met the goals? Maybe, hopefully that's the case. Met the goals, and you need to establish new goals. So let's look at a little bit. First of all, we did a diagnostic on your plan, and that is a document where we go through every component of your plan and compare that to state code requirements for a comprehensive plan. We didn't find a whole lot that was missing on the plan. There are some new things in state code that are requiring now for these comprehensive plans, and one of those is broadband considerations, and Lynn gave us a whole lot of information on that today. That looks like pretty positive, hopefully, for the future here. Broadband. Usually plans, the newer plans have an implementation strategies chart. So your plan didn't actually have a chart in it where it makes it really easy to look at what is the actual goal and how are you meeting that goal and who's going to do that. So we will try to make that a lot more clear in this plan. I think there were a few transportation requirements that may have been left out of the plan, but it was done quite some time ago, and I think those requirements may have tightened up a bit. And then we're going to update all of the mapping and socioeconomic data and all of your new infrastructure. That's going to have to be mapped, or it's actually already mapped, thankfully. You have a great GIS department too. And so we'll take all of that and lay all of those data layers and to really see what's going on. So what we want from you is to tell us what's changed. So is there any new development that will have an impact on the land use that we already don't know about from Lynn? And public services, and generally just the quality of life. How are things compared to what they were 10 years ago, 20 years ago? Are things getting better? Were the goals from your last plan met? And we actually gave you all a list of the goals from your last plan, so we'll go over those briefly. We also need to think about whether your goals are still relevant, like I said. There's a lot of new technology and things that are happening, solar and things like that you're dealing with now, so we need to make sure we address all those things sufficiently. And most of all, was the comp plan successful in doing what it was supposed to do back then? Did it guide regulation and development? And finally, what new strategies can you all help us come up with to meet the goals of the community? So here are your general goals from the old plan. Provide adequate government services, including public utilities, to meet the needs of the Greensville citizens. Coordinate development with the provisions of public utilities and service. Preserve the rural character of the county by directing and controlling growth in designated areas, and coordinate land use planning with your adjoining localities. Have you done any coordination, Lynn, with the other localities? No? Okay. I think you're doing pretty well on all the rest of them from what I can tell, but you all, we would really appreciate any input from you all on those and whether you think you've met those goals, you want to continue along those same paths. So here's the maps from your previous plan. Two of your goals were to provide adequate services while preserving your rural areas, which can be tricky, but I think that, go ahead, advance to the next one. Like your urban service areas, those were areas that were designated previously for services. And I think if I'm looking at this correctly, you guys are doing quite well in this with the new expansions. These are, especially out to the west and the north, you're covering those pretty well. But we want you all to take a look at that and see if there's areas that you think we need to expand more. You keep going through those. The rural development areas are the little hubs that are throughout the county. And I think right now you're expanding down the water and sewer down in the Skippers area. So are those all of your little rural hubs, or do we want to add some to that? And is there more development that you would like to see in any of these hubs specifically? Is your water service expanding where it should? And it looks like it probably it has expanded out to the west, and it is starting to match up with those urban areas quite well. This one is the sewer area. So I think we want you all to look at these maps, see if there's areas in your own. If you all live in some of these small communities, are those communities being served well enough, or do we need to focus more on those? Just things like that. So you all can really, over the next few weeks and months, start to scrutinize this data a little bit and think about what you would like to see in your community. You also had some existing land use goals in that plan that were pretty broad. There were some specific goals, but I'm not getting into the specifics for tonight. In your broad land use goals were to encourage new development that complements surrounding uses and concentrates development in appropriate locations by encouraging more efficient site design and incorporating proper buffers between different uses. So Lynn could probably, some like kind of technical planning terms and stuff like that. Lynn could probably talk to us a little bit more about that than you can, but it's, these are all things that we need to consider and hear from you on. So here's some maps from your old plan. Your future land use map is pretty important in a comprehensive plan. And so really scrutinize this and see if this is still the direction that you want your community to move in. As I said before, what you want to happen is that this future land use map will guide your other ordinances. So you can look at your zoning and see if the zoning changes are, if there's been any, or special permits or anything are following this future land use guide that you all developed through this map in the last plan. And then finally, we want to know exactly what you all think, your perspectives. And like I said, make sure you stay engaged throughout this process, and we will make revisions, send you more revisions, ask you to look over those. We'll be taking your comments all throughout this process, but you're very important. You all are the first step. Like I said, get your opinions, and then we take it to the community. So please stay with us throughout this process and do your homework. So let's talk a little bit about the next steps. we've already reviewed a lot of your documents and done a diagnostic. You actually have that diagnostic document in your packets. So you can look through that. It's just, like I said before, it's the state code requirements for a comprehensive plan. And then we went through to see if you've met those requirements and any suggestions that we have that how you could improve that. And then at the end, we had some additional comments of things that you might want to consider adding to your plan, because there are some components of the plan that are optional. So, you know, see if there's anything on that list that you would particularly like to talk about. So this is the kickoff meeting. We're going to have a public input workshop. We're going to come do stakeholder interviews. Like I said, talk with different sectors of the community, professionals, organizations. Anyone who wants to come talk to us and give us their opinion. We'll then do a community survey online. And probably, I don't know, do you usually do those on paper too here, Lynn, or do most people?
We can do both.
Yeah. We'll have another public input session, and then we'll start drafting the plan. Have the public open house, do final revisions, and then we will be here for public hearing and adoption process. And like I said, we want the planning commission, your supervisors, your joint work sessions are going to be a part of all of this. We want you involved in this process all throughout the way. So you can talk to your constituents about the decisions you're making. And they can talk to you and make sure you're speaking to their issues throughout the whole county. So just like to open it up to any questions or comments that you guys might have, any specifics that you want to talk about.
I didn't realize the longevity of this process. I didn't, I'm kind of surprised.
Yeah, it takes a while.
21.
I know it does take a while. It takes, and a lot of that is the requirements for the public input.
Right.
I mean, you draft something and then the public has to review it, and then you all first and then the public. So that public input process kind of extends it a bit, but you guys have good data here. So it might not take as long as it would in some communities, but it takes a long time to analyze all that data. We look at the Commissioner of Revenue's parcel database and all the land use and look for patterns and things like that. And then we draft the different plans, the different sections of the plan, do all the mapping. And yeah, it takes a while. If we were just to go behind closed doors and do it all, it wouldn't take that long. We've got to have your input and feedback. So extends it a bit. Kelly, did you want to say anything?
I just wanted to come up here, introduce myself too. I'm Kelly Davis, also with the Berkeley Group, and to help facilitate any discussion points as well. So, this is, as the kickoff meeting, this is really our opportunity to hear from you. Our next time that we come before you will be at the public workshop. So we'll be meeting citizens in a socially distanced manner. But this is our opportunity with you all to help us identify what some of those hot topics might be, what some of those key goals that either are really important to this community still, or new goals, as Melissa had said, that have arisen, areas of the community that we might want to provide some additional focus to. Melissa provided those maps and PowerPoint, and those are from your current comprehensive plan. So if you'd like us to point you to that direction and be able to dive into those a little bit more, we can do that. But this is an opportunity so that we can hear from you, so that when we come to the community and are developing questions for those workshops, that we are informed to be able to ask the right questions in our community surveys, in our open house and workshops. So
yeah, that's a good point. Sometimes you don't want to talk about those hot topics in front of the public. So now's your time to talk to us, directly about those hot topics, and we can do a little more research on those, or figure out ways to be sensitive when we're presenting those topics to the public. So
So how are you going to get this information out to How are you gonna get this information out to the public about online and workshops?
So typically what we do, we would recommend that the county set up a website where all of the information is kept throughout the process. And we have information that we share with Lynn. And then, and Lynn might be able to answer this as well, but typically that information is shared in the newspaper, sometimes via mailings. But Lynn, if you'd like to.
We will, put, in the past, I put an article in the newspaper informing everybody about the comp plan process update. We'll put dates and times of those workshops. We'll also have it on the website. We have done mailings with the water and sewer bills before, so there's various avenues we can reach out to the public and inform them of the process. We'll do that as we go through this process.
And then when we meet with the stakeholders too, they, that's, they often tell their friends and, and say, we need to really be involved in this as as this industry or as this business community. We really need to be involved in this. And that's a really good way to spread the word too.
And another thing that I just want to point out, as Melissa mentioned in the slide, part of the reason why we're here today is to engage you all in the process and help be that voice to your constituents. Tell them that this is happening. Let them know about the survey when it comes as well. We're all in this together through the very end to get this plan through adoption. We need to hear from everybody, and certainly you all are the shepherds of that.
No
Do
specific.
y'all have any pressing issues you would like them to concentrate on? The broadband is a big issue, school systems are a big issue. What some of y'all see as some of the most important issues?
I guess one of the things that we're dealing with is trying to get the natural side going, and
Yes.
not natural gas, and that's always the coma. So I talked to the governor, two U.S. senators, and it seems like we can't get the money to move out of our. That's one of our biggest issues. That's what's bringing energy to the county. We don't have natural gas, energy now.
We talked a great deal today about the mega site and what we've done. Without being natural gas, broadband, I think they're two of the biggest interests we have right now, improving, getting gas and improving broadband service.
I have a question about the broadband. I know some Frank roads, the major roads, it's just doing the houses on that road, but not the side roads. There's a time span.
Yes, the grant that Empower, which is a subsidiary of Mecklenburg, got, that provides for what you call the main line fiber. They break it down into three parts. You have your main fiber, your middle mile, and then your last mile. When they put in the main fiber, they're allowed to hook up people within 1,000 feet. Right? When they apply for middle mile funds, that's when they start going down the side roads and the back roads and stuff. So while they're getting the main line in with the loop and everything together, they're allowed to go 1,000 feet with those grant funds. We are applying with Mecklenburg now for middle mile and last mile grant funds, so they can branch out. Right now, they can only do 1,000 feet off the main line with that grant, particular grant that's going on now. We see all the activity.
So what is your community?
Yeah,
What is the community that you were most concerned about with the broadband? Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
It's hard to see who's talking.
The break area.
Break, okay.
Greenville County. Greenville County.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because when they give me here saying, on the north side of California, there's nothing coming. All that stay on the south side. So I live on the north side.
Yeah.
I guess me and Tony want to see something coming to the north side of Greenville County, not on the south side.
What they're doing right now, they're tying all of their infrastructure, all the offices and all the substations. That's the main fiber. That's the branch off of. That's what they're doing now. But I have maps I will be giving the Berkeley group to show some coverage areas and we'll don't have coverage. Most of the county don't have coverage. But I've got plenty of data to give them for this kind of process.
That's a really important, very important issue right now. And you're,
And I look on for our school, we have to do something with our school system and school building. You see, you like the way this look? And go look at our high school, you go back in the neighborhood.
That's part of your capital, projects are included in the comp plan, and I mentioned to them that the schools will be of great interest in identifying those needs in the comp plan, so.
From the school's perspective, that could be something that we asked about in the public survey as an example. Is one question that I would have to you all is the focus are quality issues primarily in the high schools. And sometimes we see elementary schools are confined condition, but the high schools need improvements from your perspective. Are there specific questions that we should be asking in the survey related to schools?
Well, the Green Building opened up in 1953. That would be I was born, believe it or not. And I've been in the building and see plastic coming off the walls. My wife taught at the high school, and I told her this desk that you got right now, they couldn't even make it. I don't know finances, but the main building, we've done some things over there. The main building is not vertically changed a lot since then.
the high school is what you're talking
The
about?
high school.
Yeah.
I think we were vertebrated the middle school, and of course, the elementary school, fairly new. And then Belleville was built back in the late sixties, over 1969. So, the high school is the one that we really use some major. I think we need to do high school.
And what do you know about the capacity of the schools? I mean, are they, is there room for growth in the buildings?
No.
No.
That's what I informed them of earlier. If we were to get lucky and land a client in the notice like the school system will be struggling, they just would not be able to accommodate that many new students.
Would the location of a potential new school be something to ask the community about in the comprehensive plan? Would you like us to open that question to the community?
One of the things this is, working with the superintendent, and she totally realized that we have to do something. You know, the building itself, like you said, if you walk into an address that look nice, your mind works different. When you walk into a building that look like it haven't been maintained, that affects the way kids think of it. No question about it. That's one of the greatest comment. Every time I talk to superintendent, that's one of the things she's always saying. I'm not gonna say exactly what she said, but it's kind of like we need a facility for learning and technology. I think we're behind. We probably, I look at Franklin, Southampton, Sussex County. I know we're behind, way behind the technology. And that's something else we need to really work on with our kids, get up to speed with technology.
Like technology across the board in all the schools. As far as building wise, I would say the high school, but I would say we also need to look at somehow figuring out what we're gonna do with Belleville, because they still there at one grade in one school building by themselves, which at some point is not gonna be economically feasible, which I don't think it is now personally, but we need to figure out whether we're gonna add that one grade to the elementary school and make additions to that building, or are we gonna add one grade to the junior high and make additions to that building in addition to the renovations that need to happen in high school, as far as whether we tear down and rebuild right there, or whether we pick another site.
Which is smart thing, in that position, they built it, add on to the, and, you know, the situation was we underbuilt the school. I don't think we had pre-K, and then we added pre-K, which knocked the fifth graders out of that school. So we have a fifth grade sitting on isolated place, which, you know, it is not good for transition, because the kid transition in the fourth grade, going to the fifth grade, people don't know how much that affect education. You know, so transition, it should go pre-K through 5 and then transition over to the middle school. These kids leave the elementary school, we go to another elementary school, and they're isolated as one fifth grade. And I know in the past, I've worked with many superintendents, that affects people learning.
It also affects accreditation,
Right.
right? You have one grade of the building, and you can't pull off of other grades to help that accreditation score. They're sitting out there not successful.
So what grades are at the smaller school? It's just the sixth
Just
grade?
that one grade.
Fifth grade.
Right up to fifth grade. That facility would open up in 69, so that. But my thing would always be is to take that and add it on to the new elementary school, bring those fifth graders over there.
You got plenty of land in the elementary school site too.
That would be the.
It would really solve busing problems, with the school system too, if you could have one general campus instead of schools scattered all over the county.
One of the things that I think is interesting is in the general goals sheet from your current comprehensive plan, your first goal is provide adequate governmental services, including public utilities, to meet the needs of Greensville citizens. And standing in this building, I think that you, from the government administrative facilities, you have really gone above and beyond in that. And so now it sounds like schools is going to be the big focus, and maybe adequate isn't the right goal that we're shooting for in Greensville County.
While you're looking at, okay,
Hard to hear where the sound is coming from.
while you're looking at the school, I would also like you to look at the courthouse. The courthouse is old. I don't know how old it is, but you're talking about renovating it. I like to have a look to see what it costs to renovate versus building a new.
Sometimes people are just emotionally tied, and that's what I was wondering about the high school location. Are people emotionally tied to that location? I don't think so.
But look, everything we got the courthouse and the high school. Everything else we moved it out to the county.
Yeah.
So, if they're emotionally tied to come on, okay.
I would like you to put that in the plan. Let's look at it.
Yeah. And did you have some insight on that? Because we talked a little bit about that today.
This development could probably give you more insight as far as the courthouse, the cost to renovate. That's a project he's worked with in the past, he's working on that. I just don't have the numbers, with me. And I gave you his contact when we met earlier, when we were discussing the courthouse. It's funny, we talked about all these same issues, earlier at 3 o'clock today.
We have the same questions, just different perspectives. So one of the things, land use is your primary component of your comprehensive plan. And so that's one of the questions that we have for you. We will, again, we provided the existing land use map, but that will be a big focus of those workshops and the discussions with you in the future, with this group in the future. And your current goal in that is, again, coordinating land use planning with adjacent localities. We've got goal number 3 about preserving rural character, directing growth and controlling growth in designated areas, encouraging the new development that complements surrounding uses, concentrating development with more efficient site design, incorporating proper buffers, and as Melissa had said before, a lot of this is guided through your zoning ordinance and the rezonings and special use permits that come before you. I'm sure you all are quite familiar with, but a lot of those assessments are going back to your comprehensive plan. So if there are land use issues or areas that we need to focus on as we look at the mapping, again, please let us know. Usually with the workshops, we have workshop 1 is visioning and having similar discussions, typically in a small group setting. So we're currently kind of figuring out how we're going to adapt to that. And then the second workshop is targeted towards specific issues that have been identified during the visioning process and previous conversations. So again, if there's anything related to land use in particular, certainly let us know.
That would be things like, a lot of our communities will say we don't have enough commercial areas or areas that are zoned for commercial growth, or we don't have enough areas zoned for residential. new subdivisions, or some are, concerned with protecting agriculture. We need to do more to protect our existing farms and agriculture. So those are the kinds of issues to think about when you're thinking about land use. We talk about land use every day, so we know it really, really well. Land use is like when you just, you don't talk about planning every day. You think, well, what does that actually mean? So,
Are you happy with the quality of development that you're seeing today? Any new development that comes in?
We get very little residential growth, is taking place.
So you're not running into a problem or anything, zone we haven't run into the problem of more commercial. So, that's kind of not really for us, we're just trying to direct what we're going to get into the areas because we have not done that.
yeah, the urban service districts. Yeah, there's.
And then we voted out exit 4 recently with infrastructure, we're actually putting in place there, and we finished water infrastructure. We're doing sewer infrastructure, so that's what we're really opening up exit 4 for some more development. We're actually seeing that now. I don't know if everybody knows, but we've got a company coming in west of exit 4. We're going to go down and to tear that down to build a facility. I actually had a plans name, so I think you will see some commercial development in that area. That was pointed out in the last company, we concentrated in that area. I think we did a good job.
Yeah, I think you've done a really, really good job, especially for a rural county. It's right in line with the new development and the infrastructure that you're seeing. Any rural area or like ag issues or anything like that from anyone? Haven't really touched on that yet.
I mentioned two of them here in a river situation. It's something we discussed earlier. We're getting that study with the Army Corps. We have flooding in some areas of the lowgrounds where we have crop loss. The city is really needs to be worried because their water comes from the Herring Reservoir, the Quarry Reservoir. Like I told y'all, we're partnering with them in the Army Corps to get the study. But I think that's something that should be addressed.
I would say this, it goes right in the back of my people that in my district are comfortable. I went up the other day and you see a river where you can go out kayaking, fishing, and what I'm saying right now is safe. I mean, if the water is just not evaporating to the point, and I'm looking at sand and not.
It's turning it into a marsh instead of a road.
Yeah. And then you got these little islands up there, like, you got land, I guess it built up so much. You got nothing but grass instead of water. I'm looking at grass.
Yeah.
And I'm constantly, you know this property, she's forever on me about it. She's always calling me. I can't kayak, I can't fish, I can't do anything in our house. You keep our house, she's right sit right on the river because you can't do anything.
Yeah, that's happening everywhere, and it's an environmental issue that I don't think they don't like to dredge the rivers anymore for environmental reasons, but there may need to be some new solutions like that, because that is an issue in a lot of communities where, the river used to be, like you said, 20 feet deep, and now you can just barely, you can walk across it and it barely covers the top of your feet.
The major problem we got to this is to start in it.
Yes.
Well,
It's Mother Nature's taking this course. It's still in the sediment.
Right.
You have all the trees falling in, log jams. It's just full of debris.
Are there any new large water users upriver? Are there any new large water users upriver?
The latest one was the town of Lawrenceville built a reservoir, Great Creek that flows into the area. I don't think there are any other uses up to here and here
Yeah,
around.
okay.
Don't the ring get that water out of the river?
That well, they get it from a combination of the county and the city. So the city's drawing water out of the river that is fed back up to Dominion Power for their, power making process. We, county has, we're obligated to provide 1.5 million gallons a day. And some of that water we purchase from the city, it goes to the rest comes from another way. So yes, some of it is going to Dominion Power.
Has there been a water study done at all, like in the last 50 years or ever?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
I'm sure our water and sewer department or another way has had some studies done, being with the recent infrastructure improvements we've done, but I don't know if the county would have
Yeah.
over the area, but I can check.
Anything else?
Anything you don't think of tonight, y'all have a phone number and email, I'll make sure they get it.
Particularly if there are questions that you think of that you would like us to explore in the visioning sessions, in these workshops, in the community survey. Those will be really important to us, and ultimately they will help you all answer questions to your constituents about this plan as well. So making sure that we ask the right questions in these workshops.
Well, thank you all for your time.
I have one question.
Oh, sure.
What's the definition of stakeholder?
Stakeholder, it's anyone who has a stake in the community, basically. So it's usually business leaders.
Oh, it's citizens, right?
Yeah, but usually it's business leaders, and we'll focus on like construction, anybody who's in development, and then we'll meet with realtors or business owners or ag, farmers for their ag issues. We kind of try to do it in different sectors, but it's usually tied back to economic drive, I would say.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have any questions, comments?
Hey, Lynn, would it do us any good to review the comp plan that we have to see if we have any comments with it?
Oh, yeah, I would definitely do that. If you have any comments, just shoot them to me, and I'll make sure they get it.
Because it's a little hard to without reviewing that.
Oh,
So it's a little awkward tonight, but I don't know if any of us will prepare to.
Yeah, and this is just basically an overview of the process, and a lot of the nuts and bolts we'll be getting into when we have these other
Workshops.
workshops.
Yeah.
Before we get into the real nuts and bolts, so, before, we have these workshops, really read over the existing comp plan.
The maps are great. Just draw, copy them and draw on them. That's what we did today with Lynn, and it really helped us. So
I know, I think the most sensitive thing that we've already addressed with all the solar projects, we went through that, in great detail. But other than that, I don't think we've studied anything with regard to comp plan, other than the solar portion of it.
Now, we concentrate on hubs or villages as they call it. So
Yeah.
that was always a big question during the solar process.
yeah, and those were the rural areas, the little circles. That's one of the maps in the comp plan. So it's kind of tied back to those hubs. So if you think there are more hubs or, there's a lot of little communities in this county. So take a look at that map and see which ones are actually already identified and if any others need to be identified that are growing.
Yeah, because I think we'd all probably be surprised if we did say it. I know, for example, doing some work out at Skipper's at that interchange in Morris Ferry Road. The VDOT changed the road classification out there because of our comp plan. And the comp plan has got Morris Ferry all the way to Skipper's, to Gooder Peanut, and I think 301 all the way to Florida. There's a future developed area.
Yeah.
You know, so those kind of things, we wouldn't have a clue about that if we hadn't, weren't studying conflict.
You have clubs like Skipperstone, where you have some commercial type development, prior you got a store, but then we had Claire's for a long while, and anything Claire's, it used to be a store, and I don't think in my lifetime, but that's what we need, we need to move the hubs, do away with some of the hubs, that's some of the things we need to consider.
That's right, because those hubs were kind of identified, that was some of the, components of the solar project was
Yes.
with respect to a hub.
So, the whole purpose of the hub is to, it's like the community crossroads where you allow additional uses that normally would be permitted, they would just like a community store. I think, like the solar one, I'm just using a picking on Claire's, on at one time, you had a store or two there, but, and that was a hub, but now it's inactive, it's not a store. It's already a skip bazaar, and we just need to look, if the right community information crossroads are, and determine if we need to add or do it some.
Yeah, so I guess that's just my point, is to encourage everybody to study our comp plan, so we can have some good input with respect to it. And if we don't have paper copy, it's all online.
Yes, correct.
So we kind of all got access to it.
If y'all need copies, perhaps anybody, just call me.
I think that was gonna be my next question, are there larger maps somewhere, because,
I can print large, they're hard to see in the comp plan, yes, I can print larger maps.
And you also have a great online GIS. I don't know if, you can get on that and look at, on your online GIS has a lot of good stuff on it too.
Yes.
I don't know if it has any of the service districts or anything.
Yes, the hubs on-
If-
on the GIS system.
If they're,
If you're trying to identify, a piece of property or whatever.
Yeah, you'll
You
need,
have to have
I'll do y'all.
Oh, you do?
So. You can look at most of the layers, you just need the personal information. Passcode.
Yeah, when you file it, you just drop it where you are.
That's
Yeah, then you can see what's in it, you're like.
If anybody who wants to utilize that, just call me, I'll give you a password, username.
thank you all for your time, and we'll be seeing a lot more of you. And like I said, giving you homework. So
When is our next meeting?
we need to establish that. Yep. Yeah, and
So the goal that we have is that we would review the questions for the community survey with Lynn starting in and get that out starting in September. And ideally be able to start that public input workshop, number one. This is, again, you have this in your packet as well. Starting with the vision and goals also in September, working around other meeting deadlines and things. When we talked with Len, we were starting to brainstorm how we could use this space to facilitate those meetings and keep everyone safe at the same time. And then allow that survey to kind of be ongoing into the fall, hopefully advertising it at that workshop. Okay, here, go out and take the survey, look at your community, what are the community issues, and then come back with that all in your mind and dive into workshop number 2, where we're diving in a little bit deeper, looking at specific areas like the hubs as an example, and then be able to go on and start working with you all through the drafting process.
I don't have anything else, if y'all don't have anything else, so I think you can. That's what you're.
That's a motion to adjourn, I guess.
So moved.
All the commission say aye.
Aye.
Good deal.
So moved. Second.
all those in favor?
Thank y'all for attending tonight.